Hey everybody, it's good to have you here tonight. As you can see, it's just me. So Johnny's driving right now and listening on the road. So he is there. He is with us in spirit as well as in the ears. Um, yep, he made a comment. So he is here. He's just not joining me on the stage tonight. So anyway, hopefully you guys can put up with me because it's also monsoon season, and so the dust is the dust is flying like crazy. We're having dust storms here, and so my allergies are going crazy. So hopefully I won't be like coughing too much during the episode. I've got water here. I have tissues if I need them and stuff like that. So please bear with me with the allergies and no Johnny. And so with that, we'll go ahead and dive in. It's good to see John and John and Leonard and Linda here. It's so good to have you guys here. Hopefully you guys have had a good week and are ready for this topic. And this is one that can be really surprising and difficult, but it also can be an amazing part of your journey. So before, thanks, Johnny boy. You're making me blush. Don't make me blush. Let me stay calm here. This is, but as you guys all know, this is Deservingly You, and we want to welcome you, and we want to create a space where we can talk honestly about what it takes to rebuild our lives after a high controlled environment, and how we can start living self-led lives instead of them being managed. Now, those of you who know me, I'm Shannon Avery Briggs. I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness and a certified high performance coach, certified transformational resilience coach, and I'm co-founder of Luminous Connections as well as the Exit Generation movement. John, who isn't here with me tonight, he's also an ex-Jehovah's Witness. He's there in the chat and listening in, but he is also an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and this became so passionate for us to be able to help other people with some of the things that we have been through. And so he joined right beside me and became a certified transformational resilience coach as well, and has stood beside me, co-founding all of my ideas. And so always just being there. See, even when he can't be here in person, he's there in spirit or listening in. And he's just, it's amazing to work with him as we're doing this work. So last week we sat with anger, and we took a look at anger, and the anger that a lot of us may have never allowed to experience out loud, not even to ourselves. And so tonight might come across quieter. We're talking about tears, and when they finally show up, sometimes that can happen actually years later, and it can seem like it's out of nowhere. And one of the things that we want to get curious about tonight is, and invite you to that curiosity, is what they may be telling you when they do show up. So if you're catching us live, stay active in the chat. And if you're watching on replay, let us know. Let us know where you're calling in from. John's somewhere in Kentucky, I think. I think that's where he's at the moment. I think he's heading west. I'm in Maricopa, Arizona, and it's 104 here. And hopefully we don't have as bad of dust storm as we did last night. So anyway, with that, make sure if this conversation matters, and we want to be able to help as many people as we can. So please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I think we are at like 97, and so we're three people away from hitting our first milestone. And it seems like such a little number like right now, but that's 100 people that are supporting our mission and being able to help other people move forward. So we appreciate all of you. Oh, it's 98 now. Oh, so we had another one this week. So thank you. Our numbers are going up. It's going up we're not expecting to go viral or anything yet. It gives us the opportunity to put in our reps and to practice and to get clear on our teaching and the ideas that we're bringing forward. So step by step by step by step. Okay, so we always, as you guys know, we want to set the space for the conversation. And when we show up in conversations like this, that really matters just as much as what we talk about. And so it's not that these aren't rules or anything that we set, but it's an invitation to have an agreement, and that this space is for your reflection, to take in these ideas and not react. We want to be curious and over that judgment, because when we judge and when we're being self-critical and stuff like that, that slows our healing down. So we want to be curious and have that space here for reflection. And we want to name something too, that there were a lot of us in the XJW space where what can happen is it ends up circling over the same thing over and over and over, and relitigating different things. And so that's one of the reasons that we want to be able to create that space where that doesn't happen. That space is there for a reason, but that's not this space. So we don't do that with the conversations that we have here. And so tonight, as we always say, this is about you. This is about where being able to find new ideas for you, getting to know yourself better, and to look at yourself for you and see what you've been carrying and how you can move forward from there. And and so, like we said, just invite you to join in the chat if you'd like to, and then we can go from there. So my screen froze on me. Sorry about that. So hang on just 1 second. I'm going to bring that right back here in a second. I'm not quite sure what happened with what was going on. My presentation keeps freezing on me, so this is probably because Johnny's not here, right? That there's always technical difficulties. So put in the chat what's been going on this week, and as I bring this up. See, I don't have Johnny here to carry the conversation either while I'm doing the behind the scenes, or I don't even have Ruby here to help either. So thank you for your patience with all of this, and we'll try it again. Let me share my screen. Thank you for your patience and all of that. And yep, Linda says shift happens, and that is absolutely true. And I am breathing. I'm kind of laughing and just enjoying the chaos with what it's like. So all right, let me bring that back. So I'm gonna try this again, and there we go. This was the one I was looking for. So before we dive into the topic, we wanted to take a look at where we're at in the exit paths. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the exit paths are, it's that exit generation roadmap where we have broken it into 5 phases to help you be able to identify where you might be at during on this journey. And we're in phase 2 right now, which is allow the grief. And we opened this with a topic about granting yourself grace. And we're gonna bring that back in a little bit today. And then we looked at what we're actually allowed to miss, and how grief that has nowhere to go and no one to hand it to. Then last week, like we said, we talked about anger and the anger that so many of us were taught to just swallow instead of really figuring out what to do with it and how we can manage it, and how it can end up misleading other people into other ideas if we don't learn how to address it. Now, there's a real range across this phase of allowing the grief. And some weeks, may feel like that forward motion, whereas others feel like standing still, or we may even feel like we're sliding backward a little. And that's what the grief cycle does. It dances all around, and it doesn't mean that we're doing anything wrong, but it may be that that's just what grief can look like at time. But as we learn different tools and techniques, we can help work through that. And tonight is what we're going to be talking about, what can happen when something has been sealed or shut for a really long time, and when that cracks open. And the tears we may not have been able to, that it might have been so painful that we might not have even been able to cry. And so sometimes when some of this happens, it can kind of catch us by surprise. And for some of you, this might even be showing up for you right now, whether you asked for that or not. So for a lot of us, tears, like I mentioned before, tears may not have come right away. And we were trying to just survive, and it can be really, really difficult when we are in grief, and we were functioning, we kept moving forward, and that might have felt like the only thing that was available to us. And there's almost like a robotic quality to that stage when you are just in that surviving level of grief, in that difficult level. And if you think back on it, you may not be living through it so much as running it, and kind of like a way a machine would run a program. Okay, we got to keep the family together, we got to keep believing. And that doesn't necessarily mean, believing in the faith itself, but believing in something, anything that can let you just keep putting one foot forward in front of another. Because the truth about the survival mode is that when you're surviving, you don't always get room to grieve. And there isn't, when we're in that survival mode too, there may not be space for it. Grief, going through it and working through it and healing from it takes time and space, whereas survival doesn't give you either one of those. So your brain's job through that whole entire survival stage is simple. It's just to keep moving. And there isn't, like I mentioned, it's like there's no room for anything else. And the thing that we can consider sitting with is, a lot of people misunderstand this part. Feelings don't disappear just because you didn't have room for them at the same time. What can happen is, in a sense, they might get postponed, but that doesn't mean that you're erased. And so those feelings postponed are still real feelings, but they're just waiting. So excuse me about that. Sorry about this cough, these lovely allergies. So when some of that happens, and if the feelings are just waiting this whole time, why are they showing up now? And so for some of the people that are watching tonight, nothing on the outside looks any different than it did last month, for example, or even last year. So when these show up, now after all times, what the heck happened, especially if it doesn't look like anything external happened at all. But what we didn't realize, even like coming here on a regular basis and coming to these discussions, you may be changing on the inside, and that you don't even realize that what you're doing. And when we experience this, there may be a level also of safety. Our nervous system starts feeling more safety. And at some point, without you even realizing that exact moment, some of you may have had that part of you where you were able to stop having to hold yourself so tight. And whereas before, you braced every single day to stop, that because we had that sense of having a daily threat. And another area too that, as we distance ourselves from that environment, and enough time and enough physical or emotional space, you're no longer standing in the middle of it anymore. And you can finally see that the whole shape of what happened, instead of just one little piece that might have been just right in front of you while you're right in the middle of it. The other thing too, as we grow in community, as we start connecting with other people, when we're in a high control environment, there's that constant low grade pressure to perform and to look good and look fine and look faithful, even if you weren't. And I was actually having a conversation kind of like this along this way this morning, about how sometimes we won't show up at places because I just couldn't put the costume on. And that's what we're talking about, is that pressure to perform, and to, instead of really showing up and being able to be ourselves. And so one of the things that we need to start practicing and learning to do is being able to be ourselves wherever we are, instead of putting on that act. So when you finally find yourself around people that don't need you to perform for you anymore, sometimes those tears that you've been holding back forever, or it feels like forever anyway, they may surface. They don't have that place to hide anymore, and there's no more audience for them to perform for. So it's kind of like they were locked up behind armor for years. And it's like, if you think about that armor, like just tight, high, and that armor of high control and that perfectionism, and even the cognitive dissonance that can be part of that armor as well. So all of these working together hand in hand held us tight, and and not let any of that out. And so once you're out from underneath that pressure, then things can start loosening, and sometimes without warning, those tears can come. And that's not anything wrong with you by any means, and it's not failing on any part either. It's what happens when we finally have that space to be able to do it, and that armor lets go of its grip. So I'm curious if this makes sense, if this resonates, if it seems too elementary or anything like that. Let me know in the chat. So one of the things too that John and I often come back to again and again is almost in every one of these conversations is the information. What information is your body trying to give you? And your tears are another way that your body will communicate with you. It's never just noise. It's a way for them to share what really mattered to you. Your family, that sense of safety, your certainty, and that certainty too is like that structure that we had our whole entire life, and knowing exactly what to expect from week to week, and your schedule and your calendar, the identities that we had, and the one that you were handed before you ever got to choose one for yourself. So it's really easy to look at all of these and have it and saying that crying over them may be a weakness, but it never was. These are things when we are, have the loss in these, it's loss, it's love, longing for something that mattered enough to you that losing it was actually worth grieving. And there's one more layer here too that I don't think that it gets enough attention, because a lot of our values were never something that we got to choose for ourselves. They were assigned to us and they were handed down, and and we were just expected to accept them as our own. And a lot of times even people will question, what are my values coming out of this? So part of what these tears can be pointing to is the real work that's still ahead of you. Figuring out which values are genuinely yours now that you finally get to pick them. So I thought I'd share a story. I've got 3 stories for you tonight, and this is the first one. I wanted to share something that really moved me this week, and it really stayed with me. I thought as I reflected on putting these ideas together, I thought that it really fit in this conversation. Many of you may know of the Goat-like Personality channel on YouTube. The ex-Jehovah's Witness, his name is Jonas. Well, he was with a couple of other friends, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, who stood outside of the International Convention in Stockholm. I think it was last week, and he put videos on it. And what really, really struck me watching this wasn't the bravado by any means, and it wasn't any type of performance. It was actually his humility and the other folks' humility. They weren't out there trying to prove anything to anybody. They were out there for the people who might still be looking for a way out. And you don't know if that person exists, but he stood there anyway. They stood there anyway. And he was interviewed for a news article as well as his own videos, and really, really great articles. I did have to get it translated, but really interesting. I was just so impressed with the message that he shared. But one of the things that he did share was he talked about somebody from the community, a young woman who had passed away, not like just within the last weeks or days before, or something like that, after a great deal of pain that had traced directly back to leaving. And that loss was part of what kept him standing outside that convention year after year. And one of the things when I was reading the newspaper article that stood out, and I couldn't stop thinking about, I just felt it. I felt the stab in my heart, is as he was standing out there, he knew that his own parents would very likely be somewhere in the crowd, as well as his uncle too. And so this wasn't as a way, they weren't ambushing each other or anything like that, but he walked into being able to stand there with his eyes open. He actually did see him. He shares in the newspaper article that he saw them and how he ended up stepping aside, and the tears came and he cried, and just the pain of having to lose family that way. And so here he stood there with purpose and grief, though, that being able, that's kind of one of the messages I've gotten this last week, actually. Two can be true at the same time. And so being able to stand there with purpose and grief, in his same body and at the exact same moment, neither one was more powerful than the other or canceling each other out, but both of those things were entirely, truly valid at once. That grief, as heavy as it was clearly for him, is part of what keeps driving him also to help the people still trying to get out, out on their own, and being able to share a simple message that wasn't, it was an invitation instead of, it was more inviting than it was attacking, if that makes sense. So I don't know whether you guys have seen those videos. If you haven't, he also always is a comedian, and so he's laughing. He does, they do stand-up comedy too, I guess, over there. And so if you haven't gone and seen his channel, go give his channel some love. And he shared the article in one of the, I'm not sure if it was, I'm assuming it was the Liberati, but he shared the article. It is in, must be, I don't know what language is it Sweden? I don't know what they speak. Anyway, it's in a different language, so you might have to get it translated, but it was a really, really good article. He did a much better job than the other side with the things that he had shared. So, so the question that I want to consider and invite you to sit with tonight is, and not just skim past this, because these are things that we might have done, and we might have done in the past, where we name it, like, what did I lose? I lost my sister, but it's, or even some people even losing, not knowing what to do with their faith now that they've walked away, not sure. And so they may even have some emotion and some tears around that. And so really, really figuring out what you're actually crying about, what's underneath of it. What did I lose? And what did I never get the chance to mourn? What was I never even allowed to name out loud? And I have a lot of personal experience with this. Most people will never ask themselves that question. They feel that, maybe when the tears rise up and they move on with their day before the question even has a chance to really land anywhere. But with all of you guys that are here tonight, that puts you in a very small group of people who are willing to ask. Most people are never going to ask. But one of the things that I want to invite you to really do and really think about is imagine what could open up if you did, and when you do. And one of the things I want to be honest with you, of course I'm honest with you anyway, but I want you to think about something. When you start asking something may rise up in you that doesn't want you to have the answer. In a sense, kind of like a gate, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, kind of standing guard in front of it and trying to keep that whole thing shut. That's totally normal, because your nervous system is going to do its damnedest to keep you safe. And so when that gate shows up, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. But you have to be curious enough to, when you imagine what could come up, what's on the other side, be willing to be curious about that. And I had the coolest interaction this last week. I have a friend of mine who is from a different country, and she's actually walking through her own exit journey. It's a little bit different than ours, but there are so many similarities. And so we talk back and forth about what this has been like with exiting, and some of the things that we identify and our lessons learned and stuff. And so she shared this idea with me this week that I thought was so beautiful. So, and it stopped me when I heard her say it. I stopped the voice text and I rewound it because it was so powerful to me. And so I kept turning it over and over in my mind. And so what she had said was, today, my history became my origin story, not my defining story. Her origin story was just getting started today, that day, not years ago, but today. So I want to invite you to consider your own story. And also, what would be the difference between your origin story and your defining story? And if you say that they're the same thing, you've got some more work to do. They're not, and because if you're saying that they're the same thing, you're not digging deep enough. So I invite you to get curious about that and say, what would my origin story be versus my defining story? And when are you ready to put that demarcation line in the road to say, this is where I'm going, and this is who I am no longer. So I just thought that it was so powerful that she had shared. I couldn't talk about tears without kind of touching on this either, because there's that grief that sometimes we can miss entirely because it's not something that necessarily happened to us, but something that we never had the chance to experience at all. There's so many of us that didn't have the opportunity to go to school or explore who we were underneath everything that we were told that we were supposed to be. Our friends were chosen for us, and we also, even our mates, being able to date and experience that, and figure out for ourselves who we actually wanted to build a life with. And then even on ourselves personally, we never built the life we would have chosen if we were ever asked what we wanted. This, by having these unlived things, that's deep human grief, and it's like those other losses. But the thing that can be different and worth naming here is that some of what you're grieving, that it happened, whether it's like the loss of your family and those types of things, and you can point at it pretty easily and name it, maybe name the date, name the moment, those types of things. And some of you, though, haven't even uncovered it yet, and you're still, sitting there, and somewhere it's inside you and waiting for you to find it and finally give it a name. And I'm going to touch on that here in just a second too. So either way, naming it, whichever kind it was, whether it was the kind that was easily visible or the kind that was more hidden, and which is, learning how to do that can help you take that step of learning how to honor what actually happened, and honor that pain, and honor that loss that you had. When you do that, that actually can help you to decide what's going to happen next in your life. So what do you do if the tears they automatically show up? We had that gate, we talked about that gate earlier, and it may show up like right here in that exact moment. And so part of you may say, this is too big. I can't let this out. Not now, not maybe ever. And the key is that we don't need to argue with the gate by any means, or on the opposite side, we don't need to try to force it open by that sheer will either. We can let the tears be what they are, and we don't have to apologize for them. We don't have to judge ourselves for having them in the first place. And there may be also, because this can be so difficult, there may be that real pull of distraction, because sitting in things like this can be genuinely, physically, as well as emotionally painful. And so it's so much easier bring up the phone and just scroll away, and to busy yourself right back out of it and to find something, anything to do instead. But our tears don't need to be managed or scheduled or tidied up or anything. They just need permission to not be shut down. So we just want to encourage them. Let them be what they are and what they want. And some of this may sound like just kind of crazy with like, what? This all should just kind of be secondhand. But we're gonna dive in a little bit deeper. I want to share an idea tonight that might sound familiar to any of you who have worked in corporate. It's also one of those that I personally, it changed my life by using this idea, and I'll walk through the story and explain how it all worked and everything. Now, like I said, some of you may have, if you've ever worked in the corporate world, you may have experienced this. It's called the 5 whys. And this was actually it's a tool that was built for one specific purpose. And it was to get all the way down to the actual root cause of the problem and not just settling for that first answer that shows up. And it turns out that we can use this same thing for grief in a similar manner. So you keep asking, you keep getting curious about it and asking again and again until there's genuinely nothing left underneath, and you also are able to identify the answer. You're able to identify that. And so this one, the thing that when I sat back and said, really what helped me to get to where I am, especially during the cancer journey, was there was a point where I was completely stuck. I wasn't, some of you have heard this story, or parts of this story anyway, but I was stuck, and my doctor saw it, and he told me, he goes, we are missing something here. And so we sat down and had a conversation, and we're just talking back and forth. And at one point during the conversation, he asked me, I said, do you realize that you deserve help? And I turned away from him. I physically turned away from him. And then a little bit later, I started talking again, and he asked it again. He, said, I didn't even realize when I had turned away from him, I didn't realize that I'd done that. And we talked, like I said, we talked a little bit longer, and it happened again. He asked the same question. I did the same thing. I physically turned away from him. And so I ended up having an appointment with him the next day, and I came back, and when he walked in, he says, do you understand it? Do you get deserving yet? And I was like, yeah. I get it. But the thing that was part of that five whys for me. Do you understand it? Do you understand what this is? You realize that you deserve help. Yes, no, those types of things. So when he finally called that to my attention he goes, you believe that you deserve to be sick. You believe that you deserve this. And I felt the shift within me. And that was one of the big layers that everything else had been carrying. And once I felt this shift, then everything that was right there in front of me, that next step came to figuring out what had actually come. Where did this come from? Where did that belief come from that I didn't deserve help? And that kind of insight on its own isn't necessarily enough. It takes more practice to get all the way there, and making it real. And so part of what my doctor ended up giving me as we kept working through this were those assignments, right? He gave me some homework to do. And this was actually one of those pieces that he worked with me. And one of them also was learning how to create that actual time and space for this, and not waiting for it to appear on its own. You can't force it, but you also need to create that space, because it's never, it won't necessarily appear completely. The answers, the tears may come, but the answers may not appear on their own. And so one of the things, if we can practice these types of things, it can help us to work through things like this. And there may be a place that may even call you. Now, for me, more often than not, it's the ocean. And it may be for you, it could be someplace completely different. Maybe it's by a lake, maybe it's the mountains, something like that. If you have that if you don't have that place, find it. Figure out where what's calling you, and don't wait for that to come to you. And once you're there, understand that space isn't neutral. Whether it's the oceans, whether it's the mountains, and even if I reflect back on John when he broke his back, even grounding. So we would have him walk barefoot in the grass as he was learning to walk again. And so wherever it is, we can have that energy actually meet, the energy from that area actually meet yours, and it can participate with you. And instead of just being part of the scenery, there is totally truth in hugging trees. And we saw a difference, like I said, with John and his broken back. When he was there, when he was doing that, he would be in extreme pain. But then when he would do the grounding and the walking barefoot in the grass, he was able to, that pain would go way, way down. So Linda says, turning away from the mindset of deserving. When grace is replaced with undeserved kindness, one might think they're undeserving of many. So maybe you can come up on the stage when we get to that point. You can talk about that a little bit further, Linda. So here's what ended up happening to me once I actually gave myself that space. We were out at the ocean, and one of the things that ended up happening, so here I uncovered this idea or understanding that I believed that I didn't deserve help. And so when I started peeling back those layers, just like we were talking about the 5 whys, why is this happening? Why? A memory actually surfaced for me, and it was one that I had completely blocked out for decades. And there was a specific moment where I had first internalized that the belief that I didn't deserve help it went through my whole entire body, and that I didn't even deserve to be alive. And so once I was able to peel back all of those layers and identify that and name it and actually honor it instead of running away from it, that was that point where my health took off. It turned a real corner, and people would just say, what the heck are you doing? So we talked last week too about how deeply these things can affect us physically, not just emotionally. And that's what this ended up looking like for me. It ended up having a direct tie to the cancer journey. And so the other side of this too that we can say is that if sadness isn't attended to, it's not going to just sit there and stay forever. It can end up hard. And I talked a little bit about it last week with the loss of Tomas and that bitterness that ended up happening. But over time, if we don't have it, we can become cynical, and we can become bitter, and we can have it turn into numbness, and it can show up in our bodies. And that's what ended up happening to me, literally, and affected my health and could have taken my life, with an illness. Now, if you are in a spot where this isn't lifting on its own, reaching out for support is a strength. It's not a sign of failure. And we want to say that as clearly as we can. My own doctor was a medical doctor first. He ended up becoming part of that emotional support to me too along the way. And so if what you're carrying feels constant or bigger than what you can hold yourself, talking to a therapist or a friend or a counselor is part of taking that seriously. And it's not a sign that you're failing at this. You never need to apologize for needing that kind of help. So I shared before how for us that sadness curdled into something like bitterness. And when we lost Tomas, especially for me, I became very bitter. And it is honestly part of what first got us to step away from the congregation, step away from the organization. But it wasn't the bitterness that made the actual decision for us to leave. It was actually the research underneath of it and the digging and the due diligence. It was really important that we chose we made the choice with clear eyes and, open and not just feeling and driving the car with nobody really at the wheel. And so it's really important that we're making those types of decisions with a clear head and not with emotions. And I apologize if you guys can hear the dog barking in the background. Sorry about that. He's in the other room and I should have shut the door. So apologize. Nothing like technical issues the whole show, especially on a topic like this. This isn't fair. So anyway, one of the very first things too that my own coach told me the moment that he found out that we had woke up and walked away from the high control environment, his message was grant yourself grace. And the thing with this too is that it's not only a backward looking thing, like looking in the rearview mirror, and it's or something that you do just to do once and to move past it. These tears don't just point to the past. They're actually asking something of you going forward too. Grace is what can help us to it's what possible to have us carry anything forward at all. And we walked through an exercise like this at the end of one of the breakouts before, and it's worth repeating here. Offer yourself that same exact grace that you would offer somebody that you loved. Without a second thought, you would do that with nothing, especially if you knew that they were in the experiencing grief. So you don't need to be further along than you actually are today. Wherever you are is exactly where you are, and that's allowed. And that actually kind of reminds me too of another one of the message, teachings or whatever that my doctor had said the very first thing when we first started working together. I am going to shut the door, excuse me. So sorry about that. So one of the things that he told me was, your feet have brought you exactly where you're standing today, and whatever you experienced created a perfect storm. And we can look at leaving, even coming out of a high control environment, coming out of a high controlled environment too, as our feet they took us. And so what are some of the lessons that we can learn through all of this? So thank you, Linda, for, dogs just need to be dogs. And hopefully having the door shut will be a little bit quieter. Yes, perfect storm. Exactly. Perfect. So that was part of my demonstration, was to have the dog create a perfect storm. So right on cue. So one of the things that a question that I invite you to sit with too, as we bring this, to a close, is that if your sadness were a person that was standing in front of you, what would it actually be asking you to carry forward from here? Would it want you to be carrying the anger or the hatred? And if you really, really think about this, what would you actually do with all of that day to day if you held on to it for years and years and years? What would that, if that sadness were a person standing in front of you, or would it point you somewhere else entirely? Would it point you towards your kindness and your loyalty and your love, and your love of community and your courage and your desire for the truth? Whatever your truth actually is and where that leads you. That might look like getting more involved in helping others who are still finding their way out right now. And it might look like writing a book someday, or joining one of those initiatives already out there that are built by and for those people who have left, or joining one of the initiatives that we've got coming that we want to introduce in the next couple of weeks for the exit generations to be able to support people that are coming out too. So what would make the future you genuinely proud looking back on tonight? Not just that you survived this, that you actually let it teach you something worth keeping. So that is the question. I would love to, if you guys have any thoughts and feel like putting anything in the chat, I'd love to see that too. Alrighty, so it is that time. If anybody would like to come up on stage, let me get the link out there so I can put it in the chat. I still miss Ruby. She did all of this stuff and made it look so smooth. So if anybody would like to share or come on and ask a question, let us know any ahas or anything that you had. What's the question again? Oh, let me go back. So what's your sadness asking you to carry forward? And if your sadness were a person standing right in front of you, what would it actually be asking you to carry forward from here? So if you had any ahas and would like to share it, or if you've got a question, Johnny's not here, so we can't get his perspective the way that we normally do, but I'll do my very best. And if you just want to, if you don't want to come and share online either, that's fine too. Listening is also participating, like we always say as well. So I'm going to keep going. If anybody does want to come on, just let me know. I can bring you up. So as always, we continue the conversation in our Exit Generation group in Facebook, and we do a Zoom there. This is to go further with you, and so that you can be curious about yourself and also learn from other people, where you actually kind of get you investigate yourself in a sense. We always have 5 questions that we take turns and share in the during that hour, and it's always so positive, and just I always up and learn something new about the people that are there, and learn new ideas and stuff like that. So the link is in the comment. It's also on our main page. You can find us on Facebook as well. And Linda is here, so I'm going to add her to the stage. All right, Missy.
Hi.
Hey.
Today's show is very good.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, when you re-asked the question, I visualized what would help me out, and knowing someone is simply right here by my side as I'm facing something challenging, as I'm maybe mourning over something, is really good. Mm-hmm. It's not like they're going to do it for me, but that they're with me.
Yeah.
As I'm doing it. It's just their presence is of such support. And that's what it makes me think of when you ask that question.
Yeah. So have you ever thought of doing that before though? Like looking at who you could be in the future?
Yes. And I'm realizing that I have already given up. And that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that realization is I'm dealing with that realization. And that's not who I am. And so, I'm just kind of pondering on this so I've allowed myself to go way down mentally with stinking thinking, and again, that's not where I want to be, nor, where I need to be. And
Well,
I'm going to dig myself out of it too. And I'm going to, asking for help.
Yeah.
Asking for help. You were talking about it being a strength.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always seemed like a weakness, but you're right. It is a strength.
Yeah, I will in tomorrow's discussion. I will share some. I will share some personal experiences tomorrow to even take this, help you to share like some of my own personal experiences in doing that um, and making share why I made the choices that I did. I do believe when you hear what I'm sharing tomorrow, you will likely be blown away.
Okay. I look forward to that.
So anybody else that isn't, please come because it's pretty. I'm surprised even myself at how powerful it has been. And
it
like
is
I said,
powerful.
Yes.
Yes.
I think when you hear the experience that I'm going to share tomorrow at the breakout session, like I said, you will likely be blown away.
So let me remind people how to get there.
Okay.
You give a link here underneath this video, correct? And that takes people to a Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
And then within that Facebook group, there's a section that says events, right?
Yep.
And that's where we go to get on to the Zoom call.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
I
how
put
we get there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this week, because we had that issue the last time too, I actually included the meeting number as well as the password in that event information. So not only
Excellent.
will you have the link, but you will have the meeting note or meeting password and number.
Excellent. Okay.
And I don't put it out here, because
Right.
we want everybody in there. It does need to be private. So
yeah, and I value that too.
Yeah, and we want the other thing too is that we want the members of the group to be vetted. So that's another reason why I don't just put it out on Facebook either, or even in any of the other groups. I want, because it's very, very specific, as you know, you've been diligent about coming and stuff, and so you know how it can be quite personal and stuff, but also amazing when we go into these conversations and see where it takes us.
Yes. I have a question for you.
Okay.
You've talked about a certain doctor that passed away and that you have really missed that doctor. And then tonight you were telling us about a doctor telling you that you deserve love. Is this the same doctor?
No.
Okay.
And in fact, the deserving doctor, the one that I actually was talking to him this morning. I was nice. Chatting with him this morning. Yeah. So we've had
deserved help.
We have known each other now for over 10 years.
Okay.
And he's no longer my doctor, but we still stay connected. And so, yeah, I was chatting with him this morning.
Okay.
And telling him about the show tonight, and telling him, that I was going to be sharing some of this stuff. So
nice. I think you flowed well tonight.
Oh, thank you. Even with the dogs, even with the dust.
With the dogs and having John your other half in the comment section. You rolled with it. Yeah, thank you.
Well, we've almost hit a year that we've been doing this now. Almost. So
very cool.
Keep doing the reps and keep sharing and make sure too, if you run across people that you think might enjoy it or might benefit from it, please share the channel, because we'd love to have you. We want to be able to help people. That's why we started this. That's why we started the Exit Generation. And I'm super, super excited about, I was sharing our initiatives with another friend of mine this morning, and she was like so excited. She could hardly stand it. So in addition to Deservingly You, we're going to continue that. We're not stopping that. But in addition to that, we've got a couple initiatives that we're really, really excited about, that I want to be able to go on other channels and tell people about them. So once we get it kind of rolling and I can really, really figure out how it will work, I'm really excited about sharing it. I'll touch on a little bit here in a minute, but.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and
Okay.
Thanks for letting me join you.
All righty. Well, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye. And I just need to hit the right one. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So like we said, Linda's has come and always just brings also such value to these conversations, and as well as the other people do too. But it gives us an opportunity to get to know each other on a little bit deeper level, and really identify what's important to us and what our values are, and speak from our heart and really figure out how we can stand up for ourselves as well. Okay, so next week, I'm excited about next week too. We're going to go someplace that may catch people off guard, and we're calling it Why Healing Can Feel Like Betrayal. And sometimes I experience this through the journey, the cancer journey, and we may ask ourselves, why did I get out and they didn't? And there were several people during the cancer journey for me where we were going through the treatment side by side at the same time, and some of them didn't make it. And so it's its own particular kind of survivor's guilt. And I feel that there's a version of this same type of guilt that coming out of a high controlled environment too. With me personally, when it comes to this type of situation, I have my own sisters, and I have people within my family who are still inside. And so what do you do with those feelings? And especially if it feels like it's just eating you up with that guilt, or why can't I convince them, or why can't, with the cancer was more like, why couldn't I save them? So we're going to get into all of that next week. Hopefully it's a topic that sounds interesting to you guys and would be beneficial. Okay, now some fun stuff. So John and I are in a competition right now for America's Favorite Couple. And if we're given that platform, here's what we want to use it for. We want to use it exactly for what we've been talking about all along, in helping people who are leaving high controlled environments. And so there's a QR code, right on the screen. If you want to go vote for us, you can help us to reach more people in those environments. So if we were able to win this, we would get a feature article in the Variety magazine, and we could share more about the Exit Generation's vision with a much bigger audience. And then also there's a prize money too. And so that would help us to support this as well. One of the things, like I said, with the initiatives, one of the initiatives that we want to start doing is there are some there's a card game that they do here in Maricopa that they use as a fundraising game. And so what I want to do is take it to the community, the XJW community, and show them the game and use it as a way to raise money for nonprofits such as Liberati, such as Stop Mandated Shunning, such as, I can't remember the other one with I think Linda, you'd mentioned them, with the sheep or something like that, Lost Lambs or something like that. And then I want to find out more of them too, so that we can find ways to be able to support these. And then there's some other fun stuff that I want to do with these games to also be also a healing tool with it as well. The other initiative that we want to roll out is to put together an anthology. If you don't know what an anthology is, it is a compilation of stories in one book. And so I want to have these series of books, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4, that has stories of survival. So I've got a book coach that is going to come in and teach once we pull this together, that will teach how to create that arc, so that you're actually having a story of encouragement and hope, so that we can put together these survivor stories. I also want to be able to incorporate some of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who are artists and put some of their artwork in there. And so then the proceeds of the sale of these books would go to a specific nonprofit. That's why I want volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, etc., so that each one would be assigned. So I'd love to see in the chat if you guys agree with that, and thumbs up if you think it's a good idea. The people that I've been sharing it with have thought that it was pretty cool. So those are some of the things that we want to do, some of the initiatives that we want to do, and that's part of why we would love to be able to win this contest today. We were second earlier this week. We were first earlier this week. We'd love to get back to first. So please, if you feel like voting for us, the first one is free. You can vote every day. You can vote one time every day, or they take donations as well. And so feel free to take the address, share it with other people, so that we can win, so that we can start helping even more so the community. So hopefully that sounds like a good idea, and hopefully I gave you enough time to scan the QR code if you want to, and hopefully it was the right. I should have tested. I forgot to test it. It said it was good. So anyway. Alrighty, well, as always, we want to leave you with a thought of a statement, a quote. And this one tonight is from Washington Irving, that there is sacredness in tears. And there's something that is cleansing, with when we experience tears, and also honoring that sadness instead of fighting it, and letting those tears actually wash all the way through you, and instead of holding them back at the door, and learning and identifying the messages and the ideas that your body is wanting for you. And so hopefully you can, just think about that. The other thing too is when we think about it, when we have huge loss, a loss that we could never, ever imagine. And to be able to look at those tears with that kind of genuine feeling of it being sacred, it takes some of the sting out. Anyway, it does for me, and it has for me. So as always, you guys are not broken. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, and keep moving forward. And that is what we have for you tonight. Thanks always for being here and for trusting us with this space, with whatever you carried in tonight. And if it helped you, please go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you can find us anytime on the exitgeneration.org. And if you like to support the show directly, that's at ko-fi.com/deservinglyu. So thank you all, and good night for tonight. We'll see you later.